Welcome everyone to this week's PermaBee live in both ways, digital and face-to-face. And the topic is seed saving. I'm Julian Lee. I'm the Sustainability Education Officer here at the Randwick Community Centre. Steve Batley, our permaculture expert and landscape architect, and Barb behind the camera, our PermaBee. And we have an audience of 6 people behind us as well. So welcome to everybody. Yes, we're in front of the Randwick sustainable outdoor classroom that has been designed using passive solar principles. So what that means is that it's as solar powered as possible, in that just the light coming through the windows warms the place in winter. We've got louvers at the top to let heat out, and clever things like that that mean there's very little energy used to keep the place comfortable. So the site we're on that we'll be doing all these workshops on is a demonstration site, and this is just one of the sorts of things. I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that we're on traditional land of the Gadigal and Bidjigal people, and pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Seeing who's there. So yeah, great. I think pretty much everyone's used to the way we do Zoom. So I'd sort of recommend that you have chat ready, so that if you want to ask questions, and Steve can read them out. And of course, today we'll be able to have audience questions as well. Also in the top right-hand corner, if you're not so familiar with Zoom, there's the option to switch it between gallery and speaker view. And when we do the report backs, gallery view is quite handy, so you can see other people. Okay, straight into topic. There's going to be a bunch of screen sharing here, but in a second. So that's the prompt for Steve to start getting ready. But first of all, why would we save seeds? Anybody out there want to say why you might save seeds? So you can grow it again. Yep, absolutely. Some heirloom seeds. Yep. So locally adapted seeds that are perfect for our site. They're free, which is great. Also, we saw that during the panic, what happened? No one could buy seeds. They're all off the shelves almost everywhere. So having your own set of seeds means you've got that sort of food security if things got really bad. Mm. It's also just fun. It's satisfying.
Yeah, it's totally.
Yeah.
It's really cool growing. You plant the seed, you grow the plant, you watch it grow, you nurture that little bunch of seeds that you want to save, and then you save them, and then you do it again next year. It's awesome.
In fact, I'm too excited because today, sorry for all the PermaBees who weren't here. Check this out, a full bucket of Jerusalem artichokes. So, these are seeds in the broader conceptual sense.
Yeah, can I come by maybe after 3 o'clock?
Oh, Donna, you know what they are. I think they might have been divvied by then. So amazing. So we've kept the ones that are going to be the best, and we'll replant them for next year, and all the rest we'll divvy up and eat.
And if you have any good recipes for Jerusalem artichokes, send them through.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Any other reasons?
Seed saving?
Seed saving?
No, probably. Yeah.
Share with friends. Yeah, usually millions of them aren't there. Okay, so we're going to get stuck into, yep, thanks, Steve. So we're going to start the screen sharing. Can someone yell out just to confirm that you can see?
Yep.
Yep, great, thank you. Okay, so we're going to be looking at when and how to harvest to begin. I guess this first picture here on your screen is carrot seeds, and it's looking really pretty. No? What's that for?
These guys can't see.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that is meant to be that way. Yeah. No, it really is meant to be that way. Sorry, that's right. for future, we'll be putting it up on the screen behind, but we're just not allowed in the building at the moment. Yes. So this picture here is the picture of the carrot seeds, looking really pretty. But one of the big problems with seed savings is, and if you can forward, is, oh, no, oh, right, Harry. No, yep. Oh no. Sorry, everyone. Give us a second. Is this the Zoom thing? Oh dear, this is going to be annoying. I'll keep talking. The next, well, Steve fixes it. The next picture is of, oh dear. Can we go to?
Are you muted? Is that all it is? No.
No.
Yeah, it's just I think it's a body thing, isn't it?
No, we're just trying to flick to the next image.
Oh.
We'll get rid of that for a bit.
And sorry, everyone, I promise you, we tested all of this beforehand as usual. Okay, I'll talk to it. So the next slide, oh, there we go. Got it, brilliant. The next slide is actually the carrot seeds looking not so great. But you've got to allow the carrot, you know, all your plants to go to flower and then go to seed and stay there for long enough that they start to look, to most people, probably pretty manky. And this is the example of, you know, the stage that you've got to get to for the carrot seeds to actually be harvestable. Okay, next slide. Great. Here's just another example. So this is the Chinese cabbage in flower. Looks really pretty. But then, of course, later on, it's not looking so great. It looks all skeletal and, yep, we can move to the next one. Thanks. Making Steve work hard here. Okay. Okay, so here's the picture of it now looking, again, you know, this is lettuce, but it's much the same. You can show those guys. You know, lettuce seeds gone fully to seed, lettuce going fully to seed, not looking great again. And then if you don't mind just forwarding through a few of these. Again, so just if you haven't ever left a plant to go late, that's it. You know, the lettuce is really elongating, getting ready to flower. Next. Okay. So we'll just stop there on a minute and I'll just talk for a second because there's another issue here, which is cross-pollination. So a challenge when thinking about keeping your own seeds is that different types, you know, similar families of plants like the brassicas, you know, the broccoli, the cabbage, the mustard, the radishes, if you've got them all flowering at the same time, then they will cross-pollinate and you'll get some funny, horrible mix that probably is, you know, I'd call a kohlrabi or a Brussels sprout because I don't like them. But yeah, so you can actually only grow one type at a time if you're wanting to keep the seeds true to type.
So did you mention
sorry, I love kohlrabi, just for the record. So Julian, if you ever need to offload kohlrabi, please, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. This is an interesting extra bit. There was a comment here that one of the Zoomers was saying, I think it's Donna, was saying that she loves kohlrabi, and I can offload all the kohlrabi onto her. Yeah. Hybrids, Steve?
Yeah, so I think the idea with collecting seed, saving seed, is that you want to collect seed from a plant that hasn't crossed with another plant, so it's true to type, which is what you're saying. So if you buy, a lot of the seedlings you buy in nurseries are what they call hybrids. So you might have one type of tomato crossed with another type of tomato to get the third type of tomato. If you collect seed from that particular fruit, the hybrid, it will revert back to one of the parents. Yeah, so if you just collect seed from a tomato from the shops, from the supermarket or wherever, the fruit shop, you're not necessarily going to get the same type of tomato if you grow from that seed. So the only way to get what we call true to type is if you make sure that the tomato you grow hasn't cross-pollinated with another type of tomato. And it's the same for, yeah, that's one of the basics of seed saving. And I think you're going to cover it a bit more.
A bit more, yep. And if you're buying seeds, if you ever see the seed packet say F1, then it's one of these ones that it'll grow exactly what it says on the packet, but either it will revert or it'll just be sterile, which is a fantastic way for the companies to get you buying the seed over and over.
F1, I think, it means it's a hybrid, yeah.
But it's also, because like all the plants are hybrid to some degree, right there, it's cross-pollination. But when we're saying hybrid in this sense, and F1 means it's so hybridized that there's, you know, it's got very specific traits when you grow it, but it'll be sterile or revert. Yeah. And yes, F does mean something, but it's no longer in my head what it means. So I guess it's the equivalent of a mule. Okay. Yes, there's a question.
No, I was going to say, isn't F generation, F1, F2?
Yes, I think it is. I think the F refers to generation, something to do with, yeah, but some of the Zoomers might be able to Google it for us straight away.
First generation cross, second generation cross.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so back to the picture that you're seeing there with the plump sunflower seeds, because there's two types of seeds, effectively, that we're going to be talking about today. There's dry seeds and there's wet seeds. So wet seeds are things in juicy fruit, like tomatoes. And then there's dry seeds, for example, in the picture, sunflower seeds, marigold seeds, lettuce seeds, all those sorts of things. The reason why they're separated is because there's actually a different way of preparing and collecting the seeds from wet seeds. So first of all, we'll go with the relatively simple one, which is the sunflower seeds, an example of a dry seed. Now the thing here is that you've actually got to be able to recognize when it's ready for picking, because, and I think if you skip forward one now, so the picture we just saw had the big plump sunflower seeds, and you guys here, we're actually going to go out there and see them as well. And in this picture, and show the group here too, you can see what it looks like before it's been prepared. So you've got the seeds underneath, and you've got what used to be the tiny little petals on top. Feel free to come in. Yeah, so those bits need to be knocked off. And when you're going for something like sunflower, you know, what you want to do is knock off a few. And if they're hard to knock off, it's actually not ready yet. They've got to be easy to knock off. And then you can pull out one or two seeds and sort of just prise it open and see, has the kernel inside developed fully? Is it sort of plump? Is it looking fully grown? Because if it's not, it won't be a viable seed. Okay, if you can click forward. So this next picture is just showing how, you know, most of the dry seeds are actually pretty straightforward. The picture is showing somebody just with their thumb prizing the seeds out. So the trick actually isn't in the collection. The trick is in knowing when they're ready to collect. So starting to, I guess, you know, here and now, just being aware when you're back out there, looking at all the plants and the seeds and looking at them and seeing, getting your eye, hooking your eye into how mature they are. And later on, I'll show you a marigold that's actually got all the different stages, so we can see that. Okay, if you can click on, Steve. Okay. Okay, that's a beautiful picture of tomatoes, but I'll let you know before we move on to wet seeds that we will be in the demonstration section actually looking at, we've got the sieves to help show how you can more easily separate dry seeds. But the main point from that first section is really, how is the seed ready? Any thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, no, and that's so different for so many different plants. So it's
yeah.
kind of hard, but yeah, the general idea of it, is it dry, is it full, plump?
Has anyone from the crowd, Zoom, got a question before we move on to wet seeds?
In the history, did everybody know how to say seeds?
Oh, that's That's a tricky question for me to answer. As in, I don't know. Farmers would have for sure, because there weren't seed shops.
Yeah, there were no seeds.
Yeah. So in the past, people would have had to save seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our grandpas all knew it, or not?
Maybe a few generations before that, definitely.
Yeah.
I think, so the question was, I don't know if you Zoomers heard, the question was, back in the generations ago, did everyone know how to save seeds? I think to a degree, maybe there was the seed saving people like there are now, but it was certainly more of a village-based kind of enterprise. Now it's lost that, but I think back when there were separate villages, each village would have its own gardens that they would collect their own seeds and grow them year after year after year. So I think it was more of it definitely would have been more part of the core of existence.
Probably would have been more gardens.
I think it's funny that we don't know how to save a seed anymore.
Yeah.
And so many people don't know if something happens, we don't know
Don't know how to do it. Oh, it's
how
across.
to grow anything.
Yeah.
It's weird, huh?
Yeah.
So
It's changing.
Yeah, the comment there was that there's lost knowledge. It's a bit of a shame. So, but this is part of reversing that, spreading the knowledge again. This next picture is a picture of all sorts of fabulous tomatoes, and I guess going back to the reasons why we might save seed is to be able to have our own varieties and have magnificent varieties, ones full of flavour, ones that haven't been bred for easy transportation, that aren't hard. Because even bananas are being bred to be more and more square, so they pack better into a box, as opposed to breeding them for flavour. It's not great. So yeah, as the heirloom varieties are often really squishy, and you can't get them in the shops because they'd just never be able to transport them, store them, and sell them in time.
Yeah, they're just not suitable for mass production and mass transportation around the place. So, the numbers on, if you look at, again, tomatoes, like the number of different varieties of tomatoes that are grown commercially worldwide is like a handful. Because they can narrow down, breed down to the plastic ones that can be shipped around really easily. And that's part of the reason. That's a massive reason why you grow some of these old-fashioned varieties, because we mentioned that they're kind of disappearing because they're not used commercially. So it's up to people like us to kind of to keep them growing. But they taste better. They taste so much better, and they're often more disease resistant as well in a backyard context. So they're often easier to grow. They taste better, and just saving them.
So how do you start just with the commercial seeds then, or do you start with the seeds from?
So you can start with commercial seeds, but also there's lots of seed savers around the country, and so you can get seeds from them as well. So there's a lot of heirloom varieties, traditional varieties that exist out in the community, and so it might be worth mentioning the Seed Savers Network. And it'll adapt. So if you start with a commercial variety and you keep saving the seed generation after generation on your own site, it'll slowly adapt to the site and the conditions.
Yeah, and when we say commercial variety, so there are companies that specialize in heirloom seeds, old-fashioned varieties of seeds. So I guess can we mention them? Green Harvest,
Eden,
Green Patch, Eden Seeds, Diggers Club. So if you go online and Google heirloom seeds, you can find some companies and you can get supplies of these old-fashioned varieties. Maybe different to some of the ones you might just get in the nursery. Although some heirlooms are starting to become more common.
Yeah. Okay, so into wet seeds. Here we go. Split a tomato in half, and you can see that the seeds are in a jelly. Now, the interesting thing about the jelly is it's antimicrobial and it's also anti-germination. So it actually holds the seeds in like a little time pod and protects it. And Steve and I were talking before, maybe it's because, tomato seeds grow in the warm, so it actually needs to wait, needs to survive. It's in a fleshy pulp in a tomato, so the tomato itself is not going to protect it very long. So it needs to survive long enough to get to the next season. It's also got to survive when the animals eat it, and it's got to get through the digestive tract. So our job when we're preparing seeds, wet seeds, is that we actually got to prepare them and get rid of that jelly. So if you can click on. So the picture is of somebody getting a spoon and just scooping around the outsides just to get the seeds with the jelly out and into a jar, which you basically just fill up with water. And then you leave that for about a week and it starts to go rank. It ferments. And the fermentation process actually starts to break down the jelly. Yeah. So here's a picture of lots and lots of tomato seeds in water, being prepared, being fermented, trying to break down that jelly. And you can see that they very clearly marked out the different varieties. They haven't mixed all the varieties. So each jar has its own variety. Okay. Then what you do is after about a week, when it's gone all guzzy on top, you pour that out, you rinse it, get rid of the yuck, and then you put the seeds down on a paper towel just to dry it out. Once it's dried out, what you'll notice with tomato seeds is that they also get fluffy, a little bit of white fluff on them. And you know you've prepared them well if you've got that. Then once they've dried out, you kind of just loosen them up again and you can put them into a packet. So I guess, you know, you want them in a cool place, a dry place, and a dark place. Nothing that's got, you know, the opposite of what you do if you're trying to germinate the seed. Yep.
Preferably in a rodent-proof place as well.
So yes.
You can put them in a metal container or something. That'll save a lot of seeds that way.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Okay. And then the last thing here in that picture is showing labeling, because later on it's pretty hard to tell what the difference between all the different tomato seeds you might have saved, or even if you're not that familiar, just between different plants and their seeds. So labeling is really important and doing it up front. So there's, you know, what is it? When did it get collected? Because there's also a sense of viability that seeds don't last forever. So, you know, seeds that you collected 10 years ago, probably their viability is pretty low. I reckon it's worth putting in where you collected it from, you know, so you got a sense of the growing conditions. And mentioning here that we're setting up a seed library here with all the seeds, like a formal one. We're going to be putting down who's collected it, because also there's you know, you get a sense of you know, different people and their, you know, what they've been able to collect and viability, and you just go, wow, this is a super seed collector. I want to use that one. But you can see here on the picture that there's a whole bunch of other information that you can also be putting down. Unique ID numbers, whether it's a, you know, what season you might grow it in, potential viability. Some people actually do viability. If you're collecting a lot of seed, it's actually worth, you know, testing a subsection of it to say what's the percentage viability. There's a lot you can go into there. Yeah, okay. So I might stop there and just see, are there any questions before we go into the breakouts?
I have a question. Do you mind?
Go ahead.
So thank you, Julian. See, yeah, why wouldn't you just dry out the seeds on the tissue paper? I missed why we're putting it into water. Wouldn't it be the faster way? I'm just thinking, I don't know. So
Donna, just to check, the question is, why are we fermenting the wet seeds?
Yes.
Yep.
Why wouldn't we just dry them out as you scoop them out, put them onto toilet paper, you know, a kitchen towel, and just dry them in the sun and then plant them? Wouldn't, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
So the main reason why no, that's okay. This is the key part. You know, the fermenting of the jelly around the seeds is to get rid of that jelly, because the jelly actually has anti-germination and antimicrobial properties. So I've heard people not bother doing that. but I think, you know, you get better results if you
Got
ferment the
it.
jelly off to begin.
Got it.
And
Got it.
just drying it out isn't as good as fermenting it.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Good clarification.
Um,
Are there any other questions? Oh, yes.
yeah, I have. I think I read somewhere that is there the ones that stay on top of when it's fermented are not good. The ones that are good are the ones that go onto the bottom. Is that true?
Yeah, I've heard that too. So when you're fermenting wet seeds, the ones that are floating on the top, you generally just discard. They're not the ones that you want to hang on to. The ones that are sitting at the bottom, they're the good ones.
Mm.
Are you only going to use to save them? Can you plant them immediately without going through that whole process?
Yeah, you could do. And we all know how prolific tomatoes are, you know, if you, just the dropped seed. Yeah. So you can just let them stay on the ground. This is to save them for over time. Any other questions? Yep.
Yeah, regarding, so I see you put a use by date. How do you know how long can you keep a seed?
Yeah, really good question about use by dates on the packet. I guess you'd sort of have to know.
Yeah.
And I reckon, I don't know, I reckon good luck knowing what your use by date is without actually having found out first.
It might just be an experience thing.
Yeah.
People know, have it. Yeah, just I'm guessing there's some sort of long-term data kept on various varieties of plants, how long they last. They found seeds in one of the pyramids that were 2,000 years old and they were still viable. So I'm guessing they.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're right. You're spot on. I have cousins who germinate from really, really old seeds.
Yeah. And I think what you find is the percentage of seeds that will germinate drops over time. So you might have a really old packet of seeds that says that the use by was 5 years ago, but you still might have success. You just won't probably get all of them to germinate. You might just get some of them. So it's worth trying before you get some.
So Steve, if you don't mind setting up the breakout rooms, you'll probably be in groups of 3 or 4. And I'll tell you what the question is. So the question is, what plant do you have at home that you might be willing to let go to seed, given that you've got to leave it for, often months before the seeds actually mature. So it takes up space and doesn't look fantastic. So what plant would you let go to seed at home, and how would you harvest it and prepare it for storage? And yep, so Steve will put you into groups, and yep, and then here, if you don't mind doing like groups of 3 and going that same question, you'll have about a minute each. There's a timer in the top right of your room, and just take it in turn so everyone gets a chance to think about a seed or a plant that they would like to go. So it's pick a plant that you would like to go to seed, and how would you harvest and prepare it for storage. It's an opportunity to think about your situation and take advantage of the brain's trust in front of you. Okay, see you in a few minutes. Oh, it just takes time sometimes. Is record off now, Bart? Great. And then, yes, thank you. Well, welcome back, everyone. Yep, I think so. And just bring the chat up as well. This is where, if you're a Zoomer, being on gallery view might be useful, because we'll be doing a bit of back and forth. So what we're going to do is, like we do normally, is just go around each of the groups just to see a bit of feedback. Could you perhaps, if it's not your turn, maybe think about what you might say. And what we might do is start out here.
So in our group, we had one idea, which was that we're not really sure like what plants have seeds where, if that makes sense. But we did land on an eggplant. we thought, well, where is the seed of an eggplant? First, is it wet or dry? Started to realize that there's probably more questions that we had.
Yeah.
Same with strawberries. I realized, like someone said that you might have to pick off the seeds of a strawberry in order to save them. So I guess the question is more around how do you classify a wet or a dry fruit/plant?
Good question. I'll just, just to check, because this is the first time we've done this, can you on Zoom hear? Okay, great. No. Yeah, so we need to repeat it in both directions. So you just have to bear with us, everyone. Okay, so the question, I guess, really was around identifying, there's a question around knowing where seeds are sometimes in some of the plants. Are they wet or dry? For example, strawberry seeds, what do you do with them? And eggplant seeds, what do you do with them? Yep. Okay. I guess basically you need to remove any fleshy material because that's going to, storing it, it's going to rot. So you can't have that sitting around it. That'd be sort of the key distinguishing thing. Whereas if you have a look at, marigolds, it's super crispy and dry. I actually quite like storing the marigold seeds in the calyx.
Sure.
Yes.
In the packet. Calyx, thank you, horticulture student. Well done, brain. Yeah, that's no problem, but you can see it's really dry. So it's not going to rot the seed over the next few months. Whereas, if you left the strawberry seeds on the strawberry, I guess also it raises the question that some plants don't actually propagate by seeds very well. Some plants propagate by cuttings and tubers. So potatoes, you would never plant a seed. It's by the potato itself. You replant the potato.
But by nature and evolution, it was always the seed, or not?
Not necessarily, no. No, so it's not always been the seed.
So why does plant not have seeds?
Oh.
I don't know if you guys can hear this question, but
the question is why don't some plants propagate by seed? And I guess it's just an evolutionary thing. Some things head off. Why did the platypus get created? I guess it's because all plants are seeding. All plants, like just evolutionary chain, they have seeds, but some of them decided to propagate in ways other than using seed. But because they're a plant, they have seeds.
Yeah, maybe it's a human intervention thing. Maybe humans have decided that it's easier to grow a potato from a potato than wait for the seeds. Could be over time we've developed potatoes that grow that way. It could be that as well.
Okay, Steve, can you pick a group?
Yes, Leslie Ann's group. Did you want to share your
either thinking or question?
Well, we spoke about I have I've forgotten what I've got going to seed now. Basil, going to seed, and I thought I would let it go to seed and see when is the right time to actually harvest the seeds. And from what you were saying, it was quite easy. You just shake the seeds, collect them, and store them.
Yeah. So Leslie Ann was asking about basil. She's going to collect basil, and she was thinking that it's fairly straightforward, actually, that you just wait until basically it shakes out, which is pretty much the case. When the seeds in basil, you get the seeds going up the stem, and at the point where you can actually just shake them out into your hand, they're definitely ready.
So if you can shake them out, are they dry enough?
Yes. If you can shake them out, they're dry enough. Same with poppy seeds. Poppy seeds are fantastic, like little pepper shakers.
Yeah, actually, it's probably true for a lot of seeds, isn't it, that are held in some sort of pod or some sort of little canister. You can shake it and hear them rolling around, or if you can shake it and they come out, then generally they're ready to go.
And Lisa and Nicola, maybe you'd like to share yours?
Mine was just about my failed carrots, that I'm just going to let them go to seed and give them a chance to produce something.
Nikki's going to let her carrots just go to seed and self-sow, which is an amazing way to get a lot of crop that you know is suited to your area because they've sprouted. Okay, another group.
How about we got Kim's group?
Cool. Yeah. So we talked about broccoli. Because I actually have a little, like I grew from the piece of broccoli from the supermarket and I put it in water. And then I thought I would get more broccoli, but I actually got this beautiful flower. But so then I guess this is a dry seed, but I guess it has to be pollinated first. So I guess I have to wait until, I don't know if I need to put another broccoli or if it's self-pollinating, I have to find that out.
So that's a really good question as well. So Kim's got some broccoli that she bought from the shop, put it in a jar, and the flowers started to grow. Kim was wondering about pollination. Is it going to set seed if it hasn't been pollinated? And it's I don't know with broccoli, but I know some plants will self-pollinate, so they pollinate themselves. I think in the same flower. Some plants need to cross-pollinate with another flower from a different plant. I don't know, with broccoli, I would always do my research. So yeah, you might need to put it out into a garden with another broccoli flower at some stage and let the bees do their thing, or the hoverflies. But yeah, I don't know. Do you know?
And is this cut broccoli, Kim?
Yeah, I just cut the bottom. Yeah.
So
I wonder.
I guess I'm thinking that, if it's cut broccoli, it hasn't got roots, it's not growing in the soil, it's not going to be, like, you're not going to get the best. If it could go all the way to viable seed, it's not going to be the best because it's not from a plant growing in the ground, growing healthily all the way through.
Does it have roots on it?
Yeah. Like it's just the beginning. After I do this, I put it outside, but it's just that then I have, like, I'll put it in the ground now. Like I'll just put it in the ground and let it grow.
Can you do the experiment for us and let us know? That's an interesting question. Okay, and I think there's one more group.
The last group who wasn't in Kim's or Leslie Ann's group. Who else have we got? Helen, have you used your group?
Yeah. Helen and I chatted, and Helen shared about parsley, so I can let Helen talk to that. She seemed the expert.
Well, parsley is something that grows really well here in Sydney, and it self-seeds, so you can always have a supply. That's the flat leaf one. So I was just saying about that. The trick to that is to harvest it in February and then put a few seeds out in August, and then you'll have parsley all year round.
So Helen was talking about flat leaf parsley, and that's a dry seed, and harvesting it in February and putting it back in the ground in August, and you'll have parsley forever. It'll just sprinkle onto the ground and self-sow. Yeah.
Parsley is an interesting. We've actually pretty much got a forest of parsley out in our garden at the moment. Like, it's just, some beds are just like thick parsley. So yeah, it's a great one for we just let it naturalize. Yeah, and that's my favorite type of seed saving. You let something go to seed, just leave it alone, and then a season later or 6 months later or even a month later, you've got a whole new crop just growing. Yeah.
We had I think it was Kim and Paulina, I think, planted some sunflowers, and part of the sunflower seeds got saved, but some of them just fell to the ground, and these sunflowers are the next crop. So there was, you know, they looked fabulous, tons of them, zero effort, right? We just admired them, but they're actually going to provide a good prop to show in real life. So, you know, you can see here with the sunflower seeds, just trying to recognize when are the seeds ready to harvest. The yellow petals are all gone around the outside, and the little florets just crumble off really, really easily. And then you can see inside.
Are you guys getting that?
Yep.
Just do it
Inside.
slowly.
Yeah, sorry. Inside the seeds are quite plump. Now, it's not really the best time of year for sunflowers. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, yeah, see if there's a black background. I've just peeled the seed. Yeah, come on. And there's a kernel inside. That's the bit that we eat. But yeah, all the cockatoos. But you can see here that that's nicely filled out. And because there's so many on this flower head, great, you sacrifice a few to find out whether it's ready. And if it wasn't actually ready, I mean, here it's cut, but if you left it on the plant, you'd actually just let it grow for a bit longer. But, you know, this, you'd then get rid of all this, let it dry out. And I've seen plenty of people actually just cut it off the back and again, store it in the head. Something, if you are a bird lover, is that I've also seen people just plonk that down on something wet, and it just sprouts, and just eat all the sprouts off it, or just for the birds to just go crazy, and you know, you can sort of hang it up, sprouted or unsprouted. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Anyway, so there we go. While I'm cleaning off this book, the Seed Savers Handbook, is the bomb. It's the manual. This tells you everything we've said here and more in slow motion. But what's really good is that, you know, there was the question from Andrew in the crowd sort of saying, well, where is the seed in each vegetable, flower or plant? This goes plant by plant, gives you everything to do with that particular plant. So highly, highly recommended. We do have it in our library here. So it's available for PermaBee volunteers to come and hire. Thank you to Nikki, who's putting together a catalogue so we can lend. Yes?
I was just going to, while you're talking, I'll look up basil because we had a question about difficulty growing basil from seeds. So maybe there's a...
Okay, yep. And there's another one about, is it easy to spot genetically modified seeds? No, they're indistinguishable physically, as far as I'm aware. So here we go. Here's another dry seed example. I'm going to use Marigold here because it's got everything on it on the one plant. So this is a good point. They don't all mature at the same time. So here is a Marigold seed. The petals are starting to fall off. But if I pull this apart, I know that the seeds are not mature yet. Inside, if you can't see it so well, they're only just starting to go a little bit black. Marigold seeds are black and long, and they're squishy. They're not dry at all. So if we then move along to this next one where the flower is a bit further along, it's a lot dry looking. If I pull this apart, it feels drier, but still the seeds are not black. They can see there and see that. Seeds are not black, so not mature, okay? But then you look at this and you see this is actually blackened off at the top. And when you go inside, you can see that the seeds are now full, long and black and dry. They're crispy. Even better is, and I'm going to put the plant upright, and you can see here the little pod packet is actually bent over. So it's like, you know, next stage is for these to fall onto the ground. You can't get any more mature and ready than that. So I just take that and leave it, all those seeds in there, pop them in a bag, labeled with all those things we talked about. Okay, so we're also going to have a look at, so here's some carrot seeds. Now, these are a bit messier. So the cool thing is you can get things like a sieve. So we've got a sieve here. And we've got a sieve here with different size holes, so for the different size plants. So you can, for the sake of time, I'm not going to do this super properly, but I'm just going to smush them across the top. Because I did prepare this earlier, I know that a good number of the seeds, especially the bigger ones, which are probably going to be the more strong and viable ones, don't really make it through the holes. So in this case, what we want is get left behind. But there is a stack of carrot seeds that have made it through, smaller ones. And another way of doing this is actually just like this. So what I'm doing is letting them drop and blowing. Is that called winnowing? Here we go. Now there's a breeze, and you won't be able to see it on the Zoom, but a whole lot of the really light, small chaff is just, yeah, it's just blowing away. And you can just do that a few times until you clean it up. So anyway, there's a whole bunch. And we got ridiculous number of carrot seeds, so if some disappear, it's no biggie. This is better than play school, isn't it? It's a real mess. Okay, and just to show you, you know, there's the lettuce seeds. So yeah, so all seeds come from flowers. So this was the flower, and now it's turned to seed. And so you can see the little white fluff. Anyway, there they go, and we'll end up with some lettuce over there. Lettuce is fantastic self-sower as well. In a second, we'll actually run around the garden perhaps and have a quick look. But I just want to show you quickly this, oops, I shouldn't have swirled it. So I have, do you mind grabbing me a knife and a spoon, please? Thanks. I have scooped out the tomatoes into this jar. This was on Tuesday. It's obviously way too cold in my house because I haven't actually got scudgy. They still look like you might even eat them. But what you can see is that the jelly around it has started to go loose and big around it. And so I'd wait a little bit longer and then just tip it out, rinse it a few times, and then put it on the paper towel. And it's really just as simple as, there's our knife, there's the seeds. You can see it's in a beautiful pattern, and the seeds are held in the jelly. And the cross around there is actually what's feeding the seeds to grow them. So just get in there with a spoon. Couldn't have got me a teaspoon. Anyway, so you just pull it out, and so we're really only after the seed part with the jelly around it, and etc. etc. Put it into a new clean jar. Put it with water. It's not meant to be airtight, and just let it sit for a week. And in warmer weather, that would ferment up nicely. Yeah. Last thing, just to show you again in real life. So you can just from, you know, the news agents buy packets of envelopes, just ordinary envelopes like that. And we have, because we do it reasonably often, we've got a stamp. And we just stamp the front of our envelopes, and it says Randwick Permaculture Interpretive Garden, common name, botanical name, collection date, the origin, you know, where do we actually get the generation before from, and any other notes, including whether it's organic. And we store them. And then there's handy things like this box here, you can fit the seed packets in. And then some people will put them in little Ziploc plastic bags. I'm hoping we've got so many that we're just going to fill this container and use them often enough that viability, you know, beyond a year doesn't matter so much. So, can you wait too long to harvest seed? If it's fallen out of the plant and onto the ground, too late. Or the birds have got it, too late. Yeah. Okay. Any other? Yeah, we've got a question.
If the seed was from chemical spray plants, is it then like a chemical seed? Is the chemicals in the seed then?
So the question is, would you collect seeds from a chemically grown, conventionally grown plant that's had chemicals sprayed on it? And do the chemicals affect the seeds? Are they in the seed? I don't know definitively, but if you had a preference, if you had a choice between the two,
Yeah, for sure.
and then if you didn't have a choice and that was the only place you could get seeds,
Yes.
then you'd keep it. Yeah, potentially.
Be less resilient, the plants, if it's been sprayed.
It's not going to help it.
Yeah, and I think there's some new research showing that chemicals can affect I'll probably get this wrong, but something to do with the way that the genes are expressed in an organism, so it can affect how it actually performs and grows. So probably, yeah. And I think if you can, support non-chemical use, then definitely do so. It's better.
So we might wrap up this part of the workshop. It's pretty much on 2:30. So thank you very much for all of you who have come from Zoom. As a big advertisement and enticement to come down in person. I know at the moment there are only 8 spaces, but what happens in the face-to-face is that we'll now spend an hour in the garden doing more and getting our hands dirty with the seeds and preparing and collecting and labelling. So if you can, I'd encourage you to sign up for the face-to-face too. And it's nice.
Thank you, Julian. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. This is my first one, so I will make it a point. I make it in person the next week. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And every week I do send out a survey for feedback. Really appreciate the people that fill that in each time, because it does actually really help to guide where we go, and also for me back to say this is worth doing.
Thanks very much, Steve and Julian.
Got a quick question. Anything that we've actually got a gap for next week. Anything you're dying to hear about next week? And if we can, we'll run it for you. Oh, Leslie Ann's got a hand up.
No, that was a mistake.
Oh.
I do. I wouldn't mind if you, because you did a great pest management workshop, if you could maybe cover and nutrient deficiencies, which was pretty good. If you maybe could, in that line, also talk about plant disease, because that's kind of related. I don't know. That's just my idea. That's it.
I mean, is it possible? Because I'm working from home now, I would like to be able to start planting things. I've never done that before, so maybe if it's possible, what's the best stuff or seeds to look at planting at this time of year and positioning it in the right part of the garden?
Okay, we'll take those ideas on board and advertise the next workshop.
Yeah, probably cover both of those. I reckon.
Yeah, I have an idea there that makes sense along with the flow on from this, though, and takes into account crop rotation. So we might bring back together the regen ag stuff.
Great question. Still coming together.
Okay, thank you everyone on Zoom.
Thanks very
See
much.
you next week, either here or on Zoom.
You.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone, bye.
Bye.